AITA for taking legal action against my wife after she cheated on me with her trainer? I'm 34 years old, just an ordinary warehouse manager living in Columbus, Ohio. My life wasn't fancy, but it was stable. I had a good job, a nice house, and I was married to Jenna. We'd been together for 5 years, married for 3, and I thought we had a solid foundation. Sure, we weren't some super affectionate couple from a TV show, but we made it work. We paid our bills, had our date nights, and had the normal arguments you have in a marriage, or so I thought. About 6 months ago, Jenna decided to embark on a huge fitness journey. It came out of nowhere, but I was supportive. She signed up for a high-end gym downtown that honestly seemed more like a luxury spa than a place to work out. She hired a personal trainer, a guy named Justin, and suddenly she was all about meal prepping, macronutrients, and detox plans. I didn't mind. In fact, I encouraged her. Everyone deserves to feel good about themselves. Besides, I figured it was just another phase, like her brief obsession with knitting or that time she got really into reading tarot cards. In the beginning, I even helped. I started taking on more of the chores around the house, doing the dishes, the laundry, the grocery shopping, so she'd have more time for her workouts. I thought it was a way to show I cared, but slowly, things started to change, and not for the better. The more weight Jenna lost, the bigger her ego got. She became obsessed with her reflection. She'd spend hours in front of the mirror, adjusting her workout clothes or taking the perfect picture for her Instagram feed. She wasn't just doing it for herself, she wanted an audience. I remember one time I suggested we watch a movie together. It was a Friday night, and I thought we could just relax like we used to. She scoffed. "Mark, I don't have time to just sit around doing nothing. I have goals to achieve." Goals? What goals? We weren't talking about running a marathon or climbing Everest. She was just lifting weights and drinking green smoothies. But okay, I let it go. Maybe I was the one being unreasonable. Then came that morning. It started like any other. Me, half asleep, drinking coffee before my shift, while Jenna sipped her kale and spinach smoothie. She was already dressed in her gym clothes, staring at her phone like her life depended on it. Out of nowhere, she said, "I deserve more in life." I looked up, still groggy. More of what? She set down her smoothie and looked at me, her expression dead serious. "This marriage is holding me back, Mark. I'm filing for divorce." I swear, I thought it was a joke. I even let out a small laugh, thinking she was kidding, but she wasn't. Her face was stone cold. "I've outgrown this," she said. As if I were a piece of old furniture she was ready to haul to the curb. You wouldn't understand. I was in complete shock. My wife, the woman I'd shared years of my life with, had just dropped this on me so casually. I tried to process her words, but all I felt was a mix of disbelief and a hot rage boiling in my chest. "What do you mean? You've outgrown this?" She sighed, as if I were a child asking too many questions. "Mark, I've been working on myself, trying to be the best version of me, and frankly, this life no longer lives up to my potential. I want more than this house, this routine, this you." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. She didn't even try to soften the blow. In her eyes, I was part of the problem. The life we had built together wasn't good enough for her anymore. She grabbed her gym bag and left without so much as a goodbye. I just stared at the half-empty glass of green sludge she left behind, wondering what the hell had just happened. Work that day was a blur. I went through the motions on autopilot, but my mind was stuck on Jenna. Was this real? Was she really leaving me? We'd argued before, sure, but divorce felt so sudden, so calculated. The way she'd said it, like she'd been rehearsing the speech for weeks, made it clear her mind was made up. In the following days, the cracks in our marriage became gaping canyons. She barely spoke to me, except to discuss dividing up our assets or scheduling mediation. She started coming home late, claiming she was at the gym or out with friends. Her phone was permanently glued to her hand, and her Instagram was a highlight reel of selfies with captions like "New Chapter," "Who is she?" and "Living my best life." Every post was a slap in the face, a public declaration that she'd already moved on, even if the papers weren't signed yet. One night, while scrolling through my own social media, I noticed she'd deleted all of our pictures together. Wedding photos, anniversary posts, all gone. It was like she was trying to erase me from her history. Meanwhile, her new posts were racking up likes and comments from strangers praising her. "You're glowing. You're such an inspiration." It made me sick. None of them knew the real Jenna. or what she was doing to me behind the scenes. Another night, I overheard her on the phone while I was getting ready for my evening shift. She was in the kitchen, talking to someone in that fake, sweet voice she used when she wanted to impress someone. "Yeah, I finally feel free," she said. "I'm doing what makes me happy." She paused, then laughed. "He doesn't even get it. He's just stuck in the past." That's when I understood. Jenna wasn't just leaving me. She was reinventing herself, and I was the anchor she was cutting loose. But here's the thing. I'm not the type to just roll over and play dead. She thought she could crush me and walk away with everything, but she was dead wrong. This was just the beginning. And if Jenna wanted a fight, she was about to get one. But wait, it gets worse. One afternoon, I was having lunch at a coffee shop near work, just minding my own business and scrolling on my phone, when I overheard two guys at the table next to me. They were talking about some fitness influencer they followed online. I didn't pay much attention until one of them said her name, Jenna. My stomach dropped. They were laughing, talking about how she had premium content she was promoting. At first, I thought, no, it can't be. Not my Jenna. But then one of them pulled up her Instagram on his phone. It was her. They kept talking about how she had started hinting at opening an account on a site like OnlyFans, putting cryptic links in her bio for her real workouts. My blood ran cold, then hot. This wasn't just a fitness phase anymore. She was using her newfound freedom to turn herself into an online spectacle for money. When I got home, I confronted her. She was sitting on the couch, scrolling on her phone as if nothing was wrong. "Jenna," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "What the hell is this I'm hearing about you starting in OnlyFans?" She looked up, completely unfazed. "It's my body, Mark, my decision. And it's none of your business anymore." I couldn't believe her audacity. None of my business? We're still legally married. You're out there planning to sell yourself on the internet while I'm trying to hold our lives together. She rolled her eyes as if I were some outdated fossil who didn't get it. "I'm not selling myself. It's content creation. Lots of people do it. Besides, you're not the one paying my bills anymore." That's when it hit me. Jenna didn't just want a divorce. She wanted a completely new life. One where she was the star, the main character, and I was just an extra she'd written out of the script. She wasn't ashamed or apologetic. On the contrary, she seemed proud, as if she'd finally found her true calling. In the following weeks, her antics intensified. She started dressing like she was auditioning for a reality show, skin-tight dresses, sky-high heels, makeup caked on like frosting. Every time she walked out the door, it looked like she was heading to a red carpet, not the grocery store. And the posts got worse, living my truth, no longer holding myself back. The one that made me want to throw my phone against the wall was, not a wife, a force of nature. The nerve. While Jenna was playing celebrity, I was dealing with the grim reality. Lawyers, paperwork, and the slow, painful dismantling of our life together. But she wasn't as untouchable as she thought. My lawyer, Steve, an absolute legend, had been doing some digging. It turned out she was dating a gold digger with a gym membership. I think you can guess who I'm talking about. Keep reading, because this is about to get ugly. I'm Mark, your favorite future ex-husband, with a front row seat to the train wreck that is my ex's transformation. If you've been keeping up, you know my wife Jenna decided she was too good for our life, dumped me, and has been parading around town like she's some kind of fitness messiah. But let's talk about the guy who's been fueling this whole dumpster fire, Justin. Yep, her personal trainer. So original, right? From the moment I first heard his name, I had a bad feeling this wasn't just some innocent trainer-client relationship. Justin was the kind of guy you'd expect to see on a dating reality show, chiseled, spray-tanned, and about as deep as a puddle. All charm, muscles, and little smirks, like a character from a bad rom-com. And Jenna wasn't subtle about their connection. One day, she came home from the gym, practically glowing. "Justin says I have the best form of any of his clients," she boasted without even looking at me. I thought to myself, yeah, Jenna, I'm sure Justin also told you he's never trained anyone with your dedication before. It's part of his script. Weeks later, she stopped pretending it was just about exercise. She started dropping his name into casual conversations. "Justin is taking me to a new vegan restaurant he found," or "Justin says this protein powder is the best on the market." Meanwhile, I'm just standing there, wondering what I'm supposed to do with this information. But she wasn't just mentioning him. She was flaunting him like he was her shiny new trophy. The gossip spread fast. Friends started messaging me, saying they'd seen them all over town, holding hands at the mall, laughing intimately at restaurants, acting like some Instagram-perfect couple. Jenna didn't even try to hide it. One night, she came home, brazen as ever, and announced, "Just so you know, Justin and I are dating now. It's time you accepted it." And yeah, I accepted it. I accepted that my wife had become a walking caricature of an overblown ego. I'd already mentally divorced her, so what was one more public affair on her record? The more I learned about Justin, the more my blood boiled. He wasn't just some gym bro. This guy had a history. My lawyer Steve, who deserves a medal by now, did some digging and discovered that Justin had done this before. Twice, in fact. He had a pattern. Find a vulnerable, married woman, pump her full of compliments and validation, encourage her to leave her husband, and once the divorce settlement money came through, he'd disappear like a ghost. Justin was a professional homewrecker. It wasn't about love, it was a business model. He'd boost their egos, make them feel invincible, and ride the wave of their newfound confidence until it wasn't profitable for him anymore. And Jenna was the perfect target. She was starved for attention and validation. Justin had her eating out of the palm of his hand, and she was too blinded by her own reflection to see it. The worst part was how cocky he was. Mutual acquaintances told me Justin was already talking about their big plans. Apparently, he told someone, "When the divorce is finalized, Jenna and I are going to build a brand. An empire." An empire? Buddy, you're a personal trainer from Ohio, not a tech mogul. But hey, a guy can dream. Justin wasn't just banking on Jenna's potential. He was banking on my money. Jenna was demanding half of my savings, alimony, and she even wanted to keep the house. She thought she could walk into court, play the victim, and walk out with a golden ticket for her new life with Justin. What she didn't know was that my lawyer had receipts, and I had no intention of backing down. Let me paint you a picture of Jenna and Justin as a couple. Imagine a guy who exclusively wears tank tops, even in winter, standing next to a woman who suddenly thinks she's a Kardashian. They were all over social media, posing in front of fancy cars that weren't theirs and tagging themselves at expensive restaurants. I'd bet my last dollar Jenna was footing the bill for everything. It was like they were screaming, "Look at us, we're winning." But to anyone with half a brain, it was obvious they were desperately overcompensating. Their relationship wasn't without its cracks, though. Justin's over-the-top personality started to clash with Jenna's growing diva complex. One night, I overheard her arguing with him on the phone in the kitchen. "I don't care what your ex has said about you, Justin. You're with me now, and I deserve better than you bringing your emotional baggage into this." I didn't catch the rest, but it was enough to know their little fantasy wasn't as perfect as they wanted everyone to believe. As much as it angered me, there was a small, dark part of me that found it satisfying to watch Jenna bet everything on a guy like Justin. She thought he was her ticket to a better life, and it was only a matter of time before that house of cards came tumbling down. And my lawyer and I were going to give it a nice, firm push. After the mediation, Jenna's confidence took a nosedive. She walked into that conference room like she was Beyoncé and walked out looking like a deer caught in the headlights. It was a beautiful sight. Justin, her supposed soulmate and business partner, didn't even try to console her. He just walked a few feet behind her, glued to his phone. That was my first real clue that their empire was built on sand. But let's back up a bit. The mediation wasn't just a stumble for Jenna, it was a disaster. She and her lawyer tried to paint her as the long-suffering wife who had sacrificed her prime years for my mediocre dreams. Mediocre dreams? I've been breaking my back at that warehouse for years to give us the life she was now spitting on. Steve, my lawyer, was ready. He came armed with spreadsheets, screenshots of her lavish spending, and credit card statements that laid it all bare. Jenna had been burning through our joint account for months before she even asked for a divorce. We're talking luxury spa days, designer clothes, and $200 dinners. All while I was eating leftovers and trying to figure out where I went wrong. Steve made sure the mediator saw every last penny she had squandered. Then came the skeletons from Justin's closet. His past affairs, his pattern of charming married women, and how he conveniently vanished when the money dried up. The cherry on top was that Steve had found messages from one of Justin's exes, sent to Jenna months ago, warning her to be careful. Of course, Jenna had ignored them. She thought she was different. Justin's confident smirk was gone. In fact, he looked physically uncomfortable as his history was laid out. He probably realized his little scam was falling apart in real time. Jenna tried to defend him, weakly saying, "Justin's not like that anymore." But the evidence was stacked against them. By the end of the session, it was clear Jenna wasn't walking away with the fortune she expected. Justin already looked like he was planning his exit strategy. After that day, Jenna started acting strange. She wasn't so high and mighty anymore. She was still posting her motivational quotes on Instagram, but they were starting to sound desperate. Instead of living my best life, it was now stuff like, growth isn't always easy, but it's worth it. Sure, Jenna, keep telling yourself that. Justin, meanwhile, began to show his true colors. He started skipping their very public dinner dates. No more hand-in-hand gym selfies with the hashtag couple goals. The rumor mill started churning, and word got back to me that he was already getting cozy with another one of his clients, a younger one, with a lot less baggage. Classic Justin. One night, Jenna came home late. I was still legally living in the house. I couldn't kick her out yet. She stumbled in, looking absolutely drained. I didn't say a word. I just sat on the couch, watching her. She dramatically threw her designer purse on the counter, clearly expecting me to ask what was wrong. I wasn't playing her game. I just got up and went to my room. The next morning, Jenna tried to act like everything was fine. She was in the kitchen making one of her sad kale smoothies, but her usual arrogance was gone. Justin's been really busy with his clients lately, she said out of the blue, to no one in particular. I didn't respond. I knew she was fishing for a reaction, but I refused to give her the satisfaction. A week later, the real drama began. I got a call from Steve. Apparently, Jenna had filed a last-minute motion trying to claim more assets. She was asking for emotional distress damages for the stress I had caused her during the marriage. Yes, you read that right. My wife, who cheated on me and tried to publicly humiliate me, thought she could get more money by blaming me for her midlife crisis. I couldn't believe her nerve, but Steve, being the genius he is, was already prepared. He filed a countersuit, detailing how Jenna had systematically drained our accounts and emotionally manipulated the situation for her own gain. He even included a portfolio of her Instagram posts as evidence. The captions alone were pure gold, proof that she wasn't a stressed-out victim, but an egomaniac living the high life on my dime. Around that time, Justin officially fell off the map. He stopped showing up for her training sessions, stopped answering her calls, and, in the ultimate final blow, he blocked her on all social media. Yes, he blocked her. Jenna was losing her mind. I could hear her pacing around the house at night, calling his phone over and over. "Justin, please call me back. We need to talk." She sounded pathetic, and honestly, it was deeply satisfying to hear. Eventually, one of her few remaining friends gave me the scoop. Justin had moved on to his next target, a younger, flashier woman who wasn't tied up in a messy divorce. Jenna was devastated. She tried to play it cool online by posting cryptic quotes like, "Sometimes people aren't who you thought they were," and "You can't build an empire with someone who only plays games." But everyone knew what had happened. Her perfect man had bolted the second things got real. That's when Jenna's superiority complex finally shattered. She stopped going to the gym. The glamorous outfits were replaced with old sweatpants and a messy bun. She even stopped posting on Instagram for a while, which was the most shocking development of all. It was as if her entire identity had been tied to Justin and the fantasy of their fabulous new life. Without him, she was lost. One night, she tried to talk to me. "Mark," she said, standing in the doorway of the living room, "I think we should reevaluate all this. The divorce, it's been hard on both of us." I just looked at her, waiting for the punchline. "What are you trying to say, Jenna?" She sighed dramatically, as if she were the one who had been wronged. "I just think maybe we rushed into this. I mean, we had some good times, didn't we?" I almost laughed out loud. "Jenna, you're the one who demanded a divorce. You said I was holding you back, remember? Now that your boy toy is gone, you're having second thoughts? That's unbelievable." She tried to play the victim card, talking about how lonely she was and how much she'd sacrificed for our marriage. But I wasn't buying a word of it. "Jenna," I said, cutting her off, "you made your bed. Now lie in it." Her little fantasy world was crumbling around her, and I hadn't had to lift a finger. Karma was doing all the heavy lifting for me. Jenna, my soon-to-be ex-wife, thought she could walk into court, take everything I had, and start a new life with her trainer, Justin. But Karma had other plans, and now we were in the home stretch. Let me tell you how the final courtroom drama unfolded, and why Jenna probably wishes she never set foot in there. The day of the hearing finally arrived. Jenna walked in, but not with the diva strut I'd grown accustomed to. There was no designer blazer or smug smile. It was just her and her lawyer, and they looked about as confident as a couple of kids on their way to the principal's office. She must have known things weren't going to go her way. The energy was different, and I savored every second of it. On my side of the aisle, there I was with Steve, my lawyer. He came prepared, carrying a binder so thick it could have been used as a doorstop. At this point, I wasn't nervous. I had nothing left to lose. Jenna had thrown every punch she could, and I was still standing. Today wasn't about surviving, it was about winning. Jenna's lawyer started by presenting her ridiculous claim for emotional distress damages. He painted a picture of Jenna as a devoted wife who had suffered for years, emotionally drained by my supposed lack of support for her personal growth. Apparently, my failure to get excited about her affair with Justin was a form of neglect. Steve just let him talk, letting them dig their own grave deeper and deeper. Then, it was our turn. Steve stood up and began to systematically dismantle their entire case, point by point. He showed proof that I had not only supported Jenna's wellness journey, but had gone above and beyond. He presented evidence that I had taken over all the household chores, adjusted my work schedule to accommodate her gym time, and even encouraged her to pursue her goals. He read aloud text messages where I'd offered to meal prep for her, praised her progress, and even suggested we take a fitness class together to strengthen our relationship. And then Steve dropped the bombshell. He argued that Jenna's claim for emotional distress wasn't just baseless. It was a deliberate attempt to cover up her own emotional abuse and neglect. He presented emails and messages where Jenna had openly mocked me to her friends, calling me boring and deadweight. He even had screenshots where she bragged about Justin and referred to me as her backup plan if things went south. But the real nail in the coffin came when Steve addressed the financial aspect of the case. He laid out our bank statements, highlighting how Jenna had siphoned thousands of dollars from our joint account to fund her new lifestyle. Jenna's lawyer weakly objected, but Steve wasn't done. He pulled out the ultimate proof, a page from Jenna's personal journal that had been legally subpoenaed. In it, in her own handwriting, Jenna had detailed her master plan. Leave me, take me for everything she could in the divorce, and use the settlement money to start her new life with Justin. The look on the judge's face as he read it was one of pure astonishment. The courtroom fell silent as he flipped through the documents, his expression growing sterner with each page. Jenna, sitting next to her lawyer, was visibly tense, her perfectly manicured nails drumming on the table. The arrogant confidence she had paraded around for months had completely evaporated. On my side, I sat with Steve, feeling a mix of vindication and relief. This was it. Everything Jenna had tried to spin was falling apart right in front of her. The judge began by addressing the request for emotional distress damages. "Mrs. Patterson," he said, his voice firm but calm, "your petition for emotional compensation is not only unsubstantiated, it borders on frivolous." He paused, letting his words hang in the air. While emotional distress is a valid consideration in some divorce proceedings, this court requires clear, demonstrable proof. Your claims are based on subjective feelings, not facts. He then turned to the evidence Steve had presented. He referenced the text messages, the bank statements, and the damning Instagram posts. "Mr. Patterson," he said, addressing me directly, "you have demonstrated a clear and consistent pattern of support for your wife throughout the marriage. The evidence shows no sign of emotional neglect on your part. In fact, it suggests the opposite. You went to great lengths to accommodate her needs and aspirations." Jenna's lawyer tried to interrupt, stammering an objection that the evidence was taken out of context. The judge silenced her with a sharp wave of his hand. "The context is abundantly clear, counselor. Let's move on." Next, the judge addressed the finances. He meticulously reviewed the statements Steve had laid out. "Mrs. Patterson," he said, his tone growing colder, "you withdrew over $23,000 from your joint accounts in the months leading up to the divorce filing. These funds were not used for household expenses or shared necessities. They were spent on luxury items, expensive dinners, and personal indulgences. This court finds that behavior to be a deliberate and irresponsible misuse of marital assets." Jenna shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her face flushed with shame. Her lawyer tried to argue it was a coping mechanism during a difficult time. The judge was not impressed. Coping mechanisms do not justify financial deception, he said sharply. And then came the issue of the house. Jenna had argued that she was entitled to half, claiming she had contributed emotionally, if not financially, to its upkeep. Steve had already proven I paid the entire mortgage, all the bills, and funded every renovation myself. The judge didn't waste any time. The house will remain the sole property of Mr. Patterson, he declared. Mrs. Patterson, you have no financial claim to the property based on the evidence presented. Jenna's jaw literally dropped. Her lawyer whispered something in her ear, but she just stared ahead, too stunned to respond. But the judge wasn't finished. Furthermore, he continued, due to the unauthorized and unilateral depletion of marital funds, Mrs. Patterson is hereby ordered to reimburse Mr. Patterson the sum of $23,750. You could have heard a pin drop in that courtroom. Jenna's lawyer slumped in his chair, utterly defeated. Jenna herself looked as if the air had been sucked out of her lungs. Her carefully constructed narrative had spectacularly collapsed, leaving her with nothing but the bill for her own treachery. The ruling was final. The judge closed his folder and said, "This court is adjourned." I leaned back in my chair, a wave of pure relief washing over me. Justice had been served. For the first time in months, I felt like I could finally breathe again. As we left the courtroom, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Jenna's lawyer was hastily packing his briefcase, avoiding eye contact with everyone. Jenna trailed behind him, her head hung low in defeat. Steve clapped me on the back as we walked out into the hallway. "We did it, Mark," he said with a satisfied smile. I nodded, immensely grateful for his work. He hadn't just defended me, he had exposed the truth. As I walked out of the courthouse and into the fresh air, I couldn't help but look back. Jenna was still standing there, staring at the floor. For a fleeting moment, I felt a tiny pang of something resembling pity, but it vanished as quickly as it came. She had orchestrated this entire nightmare, and now she was living in it. In the days that followed, the repercussions of the ruling hit hard. The judge had ordered Jenna to vacate the house within 30 days, and I made sure to enforce it to the letter. She tried to delay, claiming she needed more time to get her affairs in order, but I held firm. I reminded her she had plenty of time to prepare while she was out building her empire with Justin. Reluctantly, she packed her things. Watching her drive away on that final day was strangely cathartic. She loaded her designer luggage into a beat-up sedan a friend had apparently lent her and left without so much as a goodbye. The house, once filled with tension and resentment, suddenly felt quiet and peaceful. It felt like my own again. Jenna's financial situation deteriorated quickly. Without access to my income or the marital funds she'd been draining, she was on her own. Word got around that she was selling her designer clothes and bags online, but it wasn't nearly enough to cover the massive debt she now owed me. Friends grew tired of her constant sob stories and requests for money. And Justin? He was still a ghost. He never returned her calls or messages. His new life didn't have room for a broke, disgraced ex-client. One night, about 2 weeks after she'd moved out, Jenna showed up at my front door unannounced. I opened it to find her standing on the porch. Her once flawless appearance was gone, replaced by messy hair and dark circles under her eyes. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. "Mark," she said softly, her voice cracking. "Can we talk?" I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. "What do you want, Jenna?" She hesitated, wringing her hands. I wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. I made huge mistakes. I let Justin get in my head. I got swept up in some fantasy, and I ruined everything. The words sounded rehearsed, but the desperation in her eyes was real. She wasn't here out of genuine remorse. She was here because she had hit rock bottom and had nowhere else to turn. "I don't know what you expect me to say," I replied, my tone calm but firm. "You made your choices. You chose him. You chose to try and take everything from me, and now you're dealing with the consequences." Tears welled up in her eyes. "Can't we at least be civil? Maybe we could start over." "I have nothing, Mark. I'm completely lost." I looked at her for a long moment, feeling nothing but a steely resolve. "Jenna, I gave you everything I had. My support, my trust, and my love. And you threw it all away for a cheap fantasy. You don't get to come back here now that it's all blown up in your face and ask for a second chance. That's not how this works. She broke down, sobbing right there on my porch. But I didn't move an inch. After a moment of silence, I simply turned around, went back inside, and closed the door, leaving her outside alone with her regrets. Since that day, I've moved on with my life. As for Jenna, I hear through the grapevine that she's still struggling. She burned every bridge, lost her friends, and is now facing the harsh reality of the choices she made. Sometimes, karma doesn't just knock on your door. It kicks it down. And for Jenna, it left her with nothing but the ruins of a life she destroyed all by herself. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.